So you are maybe having a lot of trouble ignoring the 3D. You can't stop giving meaning to it. You can't stop being bothered by it. You can't stop noticing it. You feel very caught up in your physical, external 3D circumstances, and you have this perception that you're not doing this right, that you're not ignoring your 3D correctly, or you think that what you're noticing is causing the manifestation to not work. We're going to get into all of that and more in this video, because this simple phrase of ignore the 3D has gotten so misconstrued. It's caused so much confusion. It's just, I want to break it down. I want to get back to what we really mean when we say ignore the 3D, and give you some tips on how to use this correctly, to relate to the 3D correctly, and really know what you're doing as a manifester. And before we get into it, I will, as always, introduce myself. My name is Genevieve. I am a manifestation coach, and on this channel, I am mostly a law of assumption teacher, but I do talk about energy things, emotional things, somatic things that I think are a very good complement to law of assumption work, because law of assumption is very heady, it's very mental, and part of the reason that it doesn't work for some people is because there's a lot of embodiment things, a lot of physical things, emotional things, somatic things that they have not addressed in a healthy way yet, and that's why the mind isn't getting on board in the way you'd like it to. That's a whole nother video, though. That's not what we're talking about today, but that's some insight into what I do talk about on this channel in general, so feel free to binge watch all my videos. Also my Instagram, I almost called it Instagram channel. It's not, it's an Instagram page, which is where I originally put all of my coaching content. So if you'd like to follow me on Instagram and see all of the posts and reels that I've made there in the past, feel free to do that. I also have other links below for courses. I highly suggest the courses that I offer if you are looking to manifest a specific person, or do kind of a self-concept overhaul if you feel you haven't really been relating to yourself just as a whole in the way that you know you should be. If you kind of want to just get back to like the foundation, like a true conscious manifester reset, if you will, the self-concept overhaul course that I have is probably perfect for you. And also the SP course is great too if you're manifesting a specific person. My SP course is definitely different. It's a lot different, a little bit more intense, but in a good way, and that we actually get into some of that more emotional attachment type issue stuff that could be going on for you. So that's also great. You can also there's links to do a one-on-one with me if you would like. There's a link to my ASMR channel that I don't really do so much anymore. I think that's good. So, okay, we're gonna end it there. Let's get into this thing about ignoring the 3D, ignoring your circumstances. What do we really mean by that? So I'm making this video today in part because I had a call with a client today that just reminded me how important it is to keep talking about this, because I could tell by the way that my client was speaking about her interpretation of the rule, because also people think it's a rule. Like, this is another thing. Okay, side note, manifestation, there's no rules. When we say you're the operant power, we mean you make up the rules. The rules are totally up to you to decide how your life goes, the way you should be doing things in your life, the way you should be expecting things in your life. You often, especially people who are newer or they're very like indoctrinated into this culture, the manifestation culture, in kind of a weird way, they hear like all of these catchphrases that they turn into rules, and often these rules that you are internalizing you're not even like interpreting it correctly. And this is what I mean by today with this client. She was doing this where she was kind of parroting back to me this like ignoring the 3D rule in a way that I could tell she was deeply misinterpreting that, because she was doing the thing that I see most commonly done, where ignore the 3D is interpreted as avoid the 3D. Like, don't look at it. If it's doing something you don't like, just be like, I don't see you. I'm looking over here at this thing that's like, I'm pretending I'm interested in here because this bothers me a lot. And I think that if I just avoid it, it'll just maybe magically go away. If I just like think positive thoughts enough, if I just like stay positive and like anxiously avoid, it'll go away. That's how a lot of you are interpreting ignore the 3D, is you're interpreting it as avoid the 3D. And you're also interpreting it as don't ever take action in the 3D. Don't ever take action in the 3D, avoid it. Just stay in your mind, just stay within, just dissociate from the world and stay within. And then magically one day, the 3D is just going to do what you want it to do. So I get why you would think this way, because it's another Neville quote. The whole thing of like, you don't have to lift a finger. Like, you don't have to lift a finger and it comes to you. And that is true. But again, it's been misconstrued, that phrase, because when you are genuinely shifting into a different state of being, a different way of relating to yourself and relating to your 3D world, you naturally respond differently to the 3D. You naturally think differently about the 3D. You naturally respond differently to the 3D. You naturally take action in the 3D, inspired action, as we would call it in this world, in a different way that just comes to you more naturally and intuitively. You're not overthinking it. You're not second guessing yourself. You're not going up into your head about, well, the manifestation teachers on YouTube said I should never take action, so I'm never going to do that. You're not like going into your head overthinking these weird rules you've heard random people online say. And you're just naturally you. You're just in that state of being that really does trust that if you really do have it, if you really are all these things that you claim that you are, if you really are so loved and so chosen and so safe and so secure and so happy with yourself and your life and the relationships in your life, if you really are that, and remember, that's how we manifest, is we claim that, we say that's who I am, and it's not contingent or dependent on anything the 3D does. It's simply that because I say it is that. And when you really believe that, when you really believe when you're telling yourself that, again, you naturally respond differently to the 3D. So I'm saying this because, again, a lot of you are acting like the 3D is separate from you, as if it's something that you need to control, as if it's something that's really where the power is. And you have to, and the only reason you're going within and like going inside and affirming or doing whatever techniques you're doing, it's like you're acting as if you're only going within because you have to change this very important outside thing. But you have to remember, oh my goodness, that the 3D, it is you. It is not separate from you, and it is behind you. It's the part of you that is the after effect of you. It is the reflection. It is the mirror, as we say. This is also why you can't avoid the mirror. Like if you're interpreting ignore the 3D as avoid the 3D, that's like you standing in front of your mirror being like this, like, oh my God, I don't want to look at that. It bothers me so much. I'm very reactive to what I see in that mirror. That's who you're really being. If that's what you're doing, if that's who you're being, who you're really being is someone who's in a lot of self-disapproval, someone who's still in a lot of, I don't like my life. I don't think I have the things that I think I should have yet. I'm dependent on the reflection changing first in order for me to feel secure within myself. And I am never going to take action in the 3D because, again, the 3D is somehow separate from me and it just does things for me later that like maybe I'll hopefully receive, but like I shouldn't take. There's just, can you just hear, even in the way I'm saying this, like how jumbled the nonsense is? But like this is what I see accidentally bleeding through all of the manifestation world in a lot of ways. So when we say ignore the 3D, what do we really mean? If we don't mean avoid it, if we don't mean never take action there, if we don't mean just pretend the bad things aren't happening and just look away and just pretend to be positive, if that's not what we mean by ignore the 3D, what do we actually mean? What we actually mean is give no meaning to the 3D. Be light, be neutral, be non-resistant, be accepting of the 3D. You can be accepting of the 3D because you're so neutral to it, because you give no meaning to it. Remember, all meaning making happens in here. And the only reason the 3D bothers you so much is because you, the operant power, are giving it a negative meaning. The actual actions of the 3D, I want you to think of them as benign, in the sense that like they have no meaning at all until you, the God, the conscious observer, the conscious God that creates reality, things in 3D have no meaning until you observe them and you give them a meaning. So that's what we mean by ignore the 3D, is that there's nothing interesting out there to make meaning of, except for what you decide is an interesting thing for you to make meaning of in a positive way. Or maybe if you decide to manifest negative things, if that's what you really want to do with your time, then you can do that. But most of you are wanting to manifest, obviously, some positive changes in your reality. So you are meant to be reminded right now that ignoring the 3D simply means do not give meaning to anything that you don't want to be real to you. So even if the 3D is doing something old, and of course it's doing things that are old that you created in the past because you used to believe in a reality that really believed those things, and that's why you still see sometimes old reverberations of those things. But the only way those things die out is that you change the meaning that you give them, or you simply have a neutral meaning to them, and that when you see that old thing that used to trigger you come up, you are just like, whatever. Like you just like and you genuinely like you have no interest in it. It's just not an interesting thing to fixate on. It's not interesting to pay attention to anymore, because you, again, you are becoming a healthy conscious creator in which you know everything you experience is within here. You are only ever experiencing yourself throughout your whole life. That's all consciousness is just you experiencing yourself, and everything you see out here, including other people, including all the stimuli out here, it only means something because you're interpreting it through your consciousness as having a particular meaning about you, obviously. So how do you stop being so bothered by the 3D? Because a lot of you keep claiming, you keep assuming, you keep deciding that this is your experience, that you can't stop being bothered by it. You just can't let it go. So how do you stop being bothered by it? Well, first of all, I want you to practice being the observer of everything, the observer of the 3D and the observer of yourself. Because also another part of being a healthy conscious creator is that you are acknowledging that you are everything and nothing all at once. You are not your thoughts, you are not your feelings, you are not the 3D, you are not even your own physical body, but at the same time, you are those things because you are creating those things. And I know this is a mystical thing, but this is where the spirituality of manifestation comes into play, that you are this non-dual being. You are an expression of God having a temporary experience of limitation, if you want to call it that, so that you can create your own limitations and then overcome them in new ways. It's like playing in the sandbox, this 3D world. It really is like you having a dense, because this world is very dense, so you're having like this dense temporary experience of creation. But because you are everything and nothing, none of it is personal. You are just weaving your own web of creation and getting yourself stuck in it. But at any time, you can start being the observer. And just by being the mindful observer of yourself and of your life, you start to get space from things, and you start to see, oh, I see the narrative playing out here. I can see what's happening here. I can see what I'm doing to myself. And the more and more you practice that, you get space. And that's what I really want for most of you. A lot of you are so in it. A lot of you are so deep in whatever story you've created that you can't even see your way out of it. You're just so in it. And I want you to simply start, if you're so in it, just start being the observer. Start seeing, oh, this is a narrative that's playing out. This is a thing that I've created, that I created long ago. And that's all this is. Like, it's not real. It only feels real because I've made it real for so long. I've taken this story, this particular narrative, very seriously for so long, and that's why I'm seeing it play out this way, and so often, maybe for some of you, in reality and also within me. And once you get some good practice being the observer, I really want you to start practicing asking yourself, who am I genuinely being right now? Because remember, again, we manifestors are manifesting from whatever our genuine state of being is. Like in this moment, who are you really being? Are you being someone who's insecure and therefore trying to control? Are you being someone who is more interested in seeing people's faults, seeing where people are failing you? Or are you being someone who is genuinely seeing the good in other people? Are you being someone who's secure within yourself? Are you being someone who is really trusting of yourself and of the process of the creation of life? Really get honest with yourself about who you're being in each moment, because also part of what affects people as to why they fixate on the 3D, why they can't ignore the 3D, is because they're so not used to just being reflective within themselves, like just being, again, that observer of yourself and being like, who am I being right now? Like, what am I genuinely believing right now? And who am I really being? Like, your thoughts and your feelings tell on you in terms of, like, your thoughts and your feelings are telling on you in terms of who you are genuinely thinking that you are in that moment. So pay attention to that and practice believing whatever you would like to. And this is the other part, that this is a practice. A lot of you too, oh my goodness, you put so much pressure on yourself to like get this quickly. And part of that is because you watch maybe a lot of like clickbait stuff on YouTube that's like, get him to be obsessed with you in like 2 days, or like, if you're not seeing results in 3 days, then you're a failure or whatever. Like, you're seeing all this like very clickbaity, oversimplified, superficialized stuff about manifestation on the internet that's making you feel like you need to get this quick, you need to get this right now, you got to change your state right now, you got to be good right now, you got to have it all together right now. And if you don't, then you're not manifesting correctly, or you're not doing it correctly, or you're failing at this. And let me tell you, from my own experience and from working with hundreds of clients, the people who do become genuinely very stable, good manifestors, and not the kind of people that are getting kind of like flashes, because the thing I've seen is like, you can have temporary like flashes of success by doing kind of the weird like white knuckle affirm 1,000 times a day approach, where you're like really about like control, and you're just trying to lock down your mind and like only focus on this, control. You can have temporary flashes of success from that, but I've never, in my own personal experience, I've never seen anyone have long-term, sustainable, grounded success, especially in their relationships, from that kind of approach. So what I'm saying here is, from my own experience and from working with hundreds of clients, the people that really do become good at this, they're in it for the long haul journey, in terms of knowing this could potentially take a little bit of time. It doesn't have to take a ton of time, but it could take you weeks. It could even take you months to practice this in a healthy way every day for a while, until you genuinely start to see a shift. So be reasonable with yourself. If you are expecting, it's like, okay, I need that quick fix answer right now. Like, what's the quick fix trick that I can do right now that's gonna, like, switch me out of my state? It's funny because in the videos that I post, sometimes I don't want to make clickbait stuff, but I know that a lot of the people that I need to get to, they click on clickbait stuff. So I'll sometimes, like this one today, I tricked you a little bit with the title, because the stuff I'm saying is the stuff that you really need. This is the deeper soul, grounded, what your intuition, your deeper soul, higher self intuition knows what you need. But you are too sometimes caught up in the, again, clickbait, like quick fix, egoic approach. So anyway, so that is just another thing, that if you are noticing that you've been doing this, even for years, if you've been doing this and you still are bothered by your circumstances, it doesn't need to be a problem. It could just be that you haven't found the right learning yet, the right practice yet, the right teacher yet, or something that's helping you to see your circumstances differently, so that you truly can relate to them differently. Because that's how you change them. You genuinely relate to the 3D differently. You do not fearfully avoid it. You are not covering your eyes and anxiously avoiding and just going within in some sort of dissociation, escapist thing. That's never going to manifest well. You are able to be present with your 3D life, because what is the point of it? If you're not present in your life, then what is the point of this? This spiritual practice of manifestation is supposed to help you be more comfortable in your life and more non-threatened by your life. That's the thing I really want for all of you, is to learn how to just be with your 3D and practice being non-threatened by it, to practice that when you feel triggered, you can say to yourself, this is another trick that I tell my clients, when you get triggered by the 3D, you actually say to yourself over and over again, I'm triggered, I'm triggered, I'm triggered. And you learn how to simply do something that gives you space. The reason I have you say that is because when you feel that rush that you can't stop the manifestation of a trigger once the energy gets going, and that's not that your job. Your job is how you handle it, and that's how it changes the future. That's how it changes your state, so that in the future, either that trigger doesn't come up, or it's much, much less in future times that it does come up. So when it comes up, you do a practice that like instantly gives you space from it, so that you don't just instantly spiral into it. So if you can catch yourself and say, I like what I got going on here. So if you can catch yourself and simply say to yourself over and over, okay, this is a trigger, this is a trigger, this is a trigger, this is not real, this is a trigger. I'm grateful for the trigger. That's another thing that I love. I really am. I truly am grateful for my triggers now, because they are revealing something that's been living in my subconscious that maybe my conscious ego mind wasn't able to see until I manifested a physical trigger to help me see it really clearly and to process it much more directly in my conscious mind than just keeping it repressed in my body. So you say it's a trigger, and then I want you to ask yourself, where is this trigger coming from? Who is the beingness? Who is the me that believes in this trigger? And when I ask that, what I mean is like, what is the deficiency story? What is the like I am kind of going on behind it? And then get into that, and then get into the emotion of it. This is something that if you do coaching, we can get a lot deeper into it. But this is one of the ways that you can work with yourself in just being present with the 3D, even the unpleasant parts of the 3D, and process it differently. Because that's really how you change it again, is you process your life, you process yourself, you process the way you're reacting to life differently. And you start practicing after you process it. You practice, okay, here's what's really true about me. Here's what's really true about my relationships. Here's what's really true about my success in life, that I am safe in my success. I am safe in my relationships. That is the law of assumption part, is you're remembering, I'm the only one deciding what's real. I'm the only experiencer in my reality. There's no one else experiencing anything. There's no one else making meaning. There's no one else thinking. There's no one else perceiving in my reality except for me. So therefore, I can make whatever meaning I want, and whatever meaning I say is the meaning. Like there's no other God. There's no other person or thing saying anything else. So no matter what the heck is happening, I say what everything means. I say what's true about me. I say what the facts are, because that's really what law of assumption is. You're stating new facts, and you're believing in new facts about you. And then the 3D is the after effect of that. It'll give you some reflections later. But you've got to remember that it comes behind you. It never goes ahead of you. And if you are still reacting to the 3D as if it's a scary, scary place, and you don't like it, you're very reactive to it, you think it's very real, you think it's very serious, you think that the 3D is where fulfillment is, in other people changing and other people doing what you want them to do, and you're not doing the real work of going within and saying, okay, I can only change myself. Because that's true. You can't force anyone or anything to change. You can only change yourself. You can only change your deeper subconscious. And again, the after effect of that is that your subconscious very directly affects the subconsciouses, if that's a word, of everyone around you. And that's how they are inspired in their own beingness to change in their dynamic with you, because you genuinely change your dynamic first. So anyway, I think that's good for today. We got into some stuff there today. So let me know what your thoughts are, what your experience is around the 3D here. Give yourself a lot of patience and permission, again, because one thing I could do for you guys is just take away your impatience with yourselves in terms of thinking that you got to get this right away or else you're a failure or something. Like, that's just a thing you're believing. That's just a rule you're putting on a made up rule that's only real because you agree that it's real, and you're putting it on yourself. And that kind of pressure is absolutely keeping you stuck. So give yourself permission. This is a practice. It's a lifelong practice. And yeah, so I will see you guys very soon in my next video. All right, bye.